Live from Soho, New York City, it's Wearable Electronics with Becky Stern.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm back. Welcome to our Wearable Electronics show, where we talk about all kinds of fun things in wearable technology, like conductive fabric and vibrating motors and all of the things you see behind us. Phil, what's on today's show?
On today's show, we have a special code. The code is knit.
It's fall
Yeah.
and cold. You should be knitting.
10% off everything in the Adafruit store. Expires tonight, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Get your stuff. Got Wearable Wednesday.
It's when we show you some cool stuff going on in the wearable world around the internet and abroad.
Component of the week.
One of our favorite components and how it works,
That's right. Material Spotlight.
where I've forced some crafting knowledge on you the last couple weeks anyway. Or share a material that's cool.
And questions and answers. You got questions. Becky has answers. All that and more on Wearable Electronics with Becky Stern.
We're going to answer questions at the end of the show, and so we preload them. So if you've got questions about wearable electronics, you can post them up in the comments here, or on Google Plus, or Twitter, or Facebook,
Yeah.
or Carrier Pigeon, and we'll answer them on a future show, which will make you eligible for the show giveaway.
That's right. And during the show, I'll be in Twitter and on YouTube answering any questions, giving them to Becky, and also reminding people of the discount code. That's my job.
Cool. Well,
You know, they say like dogs are the happiest when they have dog jobs. Like dogs love jobs.
my dog loves jobs.
Yeah, it's like this is my job. I go get the tweets.
Do your
Bring
job.
it back here. I got a tweet. I got a tweet. So that's my.
Go send the tweets out too.
That's my job. Okay, well, let's kick this off. Once again, the code is knit, 10% off in the Adafruit store. Flareables. I almost said flareables.
In the flareables
the
category.
Flareables section. And that expires tonight. Let's hop right into Wearable Wednesday. Becky, what is going on today?
Did you know that the blog has really cool stuff regarding wearable electronics every Wednesday? And
It does.
today there's just a bevy of posts, including this awesome Mr. Freeze LED goggles.
Yeah.
They don't have the NeoPixel rings like a lot of the goggles we've been seeing lately, but you can see through them. And there's
Yeah,
a cool
look at this one.
guide on Instructables for how to make your own LED goggles that you can see through. It's just like different creative layering of materials. So
Yeah, the LED goggles are like the hit this year for people getting into electronics. You probably heard about this, and you'll probably talk about this today. But over the last few weeks, dozens of people told us that their first electronics project and their first wearable electronics project is using NeoPixels in some way, and it's because they can then show it and share it, which is kind of cool.
yeah, it's really easy to get started with that stuff. So.
Yeah.
It's cool. Another cool project we've seen is Hannah Perner-Wilson's LED jacket. It's got like a soft pot on the front, so that's like a rotational position sensor, and she uses it to control the LEDs on the back of this jean jacket. And there's like LEDs on the front that sort of like give you feedback as to what you're doing in a circular motion. It's super cool.
Very
like making an animation or turn signals or anything you want on LED
Yeah.
jean jacket.
I could say this. I'm allowed to. We have a new NeoPixel ring coming out soon, 60.
What?
Yeah, 60.
What?
60.
It's not that big, though. It's not as big as their whole bag.
It's pretty
though.
big.
It's not this big, is it?
It's 60.
Is it this big? It's
pretty-
not this big. Is it like this big?
It's pretty big.
Okay, all right.
60 LEDs.
Can we make an Olympics sign? An Olympics?
Yeah, or Audi. We could do that one too. Either one.
Call us.
Yeah. All right, next up. There's an event.
Yeah, in March, we're media sponsor for this Wearable Technology Conference and Expo happening in London in March. Should be pretty cool. Check out their lineup of speakers. They're a cross-section of a lot of different fields in wearable tech right now, like fashion and athletics and smartwatches and VR goggles and all of the Google Glass and Google Glass type things. And so, like, it's really interesting for conferences because there's been a few wearable tech conferences happening lately over the last like year and a half or so, and it's interesting right now because everybody considers wearable tech kind of like grouped together because the field is pretty small still. People who are making smart fabrics and people who are putting LEDs in clothes, and I feel like eventually they'll split off and they'll be like the material science fashion like conference and the like Google Glass type, you know, like the
Yeah.
consumer electronics type stuff. But for now, they're all grouped together, and that's really fun because there's just all kinds of crazy stuff to see.
What I'm noticing is there's people who are going after kind of the finished commercial goods, and then there's everyone who's kind of experimenting with what makes sense to wear. And so it'll be pretty interesting. Speaking of speaking, you were at an event.
Oh yeah, last weekend.
Yeah.
Before I went away out of the country, I spoke on this panel at Engadget Expand with Oscar from Narrative. They make the life logging camera lapel clip. That's him in the middle, looking very tall. And then on the right is Sunny Wu, CEO of Misfit Wearables. They make the Shine activity monitor you buy in the Apple Store, and then moderated by one of the Engadget editors. Ryan Block.
I know him because I was the second person to write on Engadget, and he was like the third.
Nice.
And then he went to Gadget GDGT, and that was just also acquired by AOL.
So wow, really?
So now he's part of AOL again, and Gadget is the site where you can put all the things you want, and it kind of makes a wish list. And now that's part of Engadget.
Yeah.
So kind of a small world.
He was a neat guy to talk to. I felt very small in that chair because it was a big chair. My feet couldn't touch the ground. But it was a cool panel.
Yeah.
We talked mainly about smartwatches and Google Glass because the gadget freaks are really focused on it.
But everyone liked your shoes. I saw the live streaming and the recorded streaming. They did a really good job with that, and it was neat to watch the shoes go.
Oh, cool. All right. I didn't realize. I got to watch the recap. The video is posted on the blog in the Wearable Wednesday. There's a link in the show notes below. You can watch me do this talk.
Yeah.
And then,
What's this?
okay, so last week I went to the Netherlands for an art show with this group, Free Art and Technology, or FAT, that I'm a part of. And an Adafruit fan came to our show. His name's Declan, and a very charming young man who wore his EL panel hoodie. This is the back of his sweatshirt. And he put an EL panel and then cut some fabric and laid it on top to make this design. And his friend was wearing a EL wire hoodie. And Declan also made some Firewalker sneakers. There was a like light projection mapping festival going on in Eindhoven where we were that week, and so he wore them like on the tour route, looking at all of these like lit up buildings and stuff.
Yeah. Have you seen other projects recently that you've done a tutorial out in the wild?
I mean, this one, he did like 3 of my projects.
Yeah.
And so it seems like wherever I go and post an Instagram of like, hey, I'm in Eindhoven, or hey, I'm in wherever, I immediately get tweets back like, oh, really? Can I come show you my project I made based on your tutorial?
Yeah.
This is just the most recent
While
example.
you were on vacation art thing, I don't know what to call it. Artcation.
Tour. You called it on tour.
On tour.
Which worked.
A few people emailed and they made Firewalker shoes, which is really cool.
Declan said he used anti-static foam instead of Velostat and told me it worked better. So I told him to put his money where his mouth is and send me a link to his improvements.
Yeah, where's the guide? Guide or it didn't get made.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So
Okay.
anyway, I
You
brought
have
some
photos.
pictures from the show. The show is a traveling retrospective of the work of the Fat Lab over the last 5 years. And so like this is the entryway. There's like a Wi-Fi tagger project where you can like put your digital tag in digital Wi-Fi space and it projects your tag as like an SSID of a Wi-Fi network. Over in the left there is Golan Levin's free universal construction kit. That's like 3D printed adapters that go between every single type of construction toy. In the back is Theo Watson's graffiti markup language projection project where he captured the gesture of making graffiti tags and then tiled them over the wall. There's a lot of fun projects in this show, and
A lot of internet fixtures, things that people will recognize.
yeah, and lots of the members you'll recognize, like Evan Roth and James Powderly and Theo Watson and Addie Wagenknecht, and it was fun. My piece in the show, you probably also would recognize from the internet. It's this big orange laptop sweater.
It's not this that you're wearing.
It's not
right now.
this sweater.
Okay.
This sweater my mom made.
Okay.
I made that other sweater, and I know the yarn is like a similar color, but this one is just a regular sweatshirt, and that one is a laptop sweater. And so I made like a tape mannequin a la Mark Jenkins, and you put clothes on it, and it looks super realistic.
So it's not a person inside there. That's a tape mannequin.
It's a tape mannequin, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it'll sit there. The show's up through January. If you're in the Netherlands, it's at Mew, and it's in Eindhoven, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, I had a fun time. And
Looks like you did a workshop.
yeah,
too.
we did a Gemma workshop with these Dutch teenagers who were so lovely and didn't speak very much English, but that was okay because their teachers were there, and they all made essentially the same thing as the Gemma hoop earrings. So like it's a Gemma in the middle and the NeoPixel ring, and they were programming them with rainbows or with like sparkle code, and all of them had success, and none of them had ever soldered before.
That's
and
cool.
It was really fun.
You look like one of the kids there. I mean that as a compliment.
I
too.
know, right?
Yeah,
And then
nice.
it's funny because one of the pieces in the show is the
Justin Bieber in the
yeah, it's
back.
the Justin Bieber project, which is a browser extension Greg Luch made to like remove Justin Bieber from your web browsing experience.
Half the web would be gone.
It was
Yeah.
called Shaved Bieber, so the students they had trouble grasping like some of the concepts around some of the pieces in the show,
Yeah,
but they
yeah,
loved
yeah.
posing with that cardboard cutout
Yeah.
of Justin Bieber.
And so this is also
There's I brought 3 photos of
yeah.
the individual
So these are the
students.
kids who did this and then they wore them.
Yeah, and then they wore them. They had the little magnetic pin back, so they were like playing with where they could put them.
Yeah.
This student in the next picture wanted to put it in her headscarf.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah.
It sounds like you had a good time.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty fun.
All right. Next up, component of the week.
Okay, this week for you, my students at SVA have been working a lot with vibration motors, so I thought I'd talk to you about them because they're cool. It's like the same thing that's in your cell phone. It's a tiny little motor.
Yeah.
It's in a can. It's got an offset weight, and it's inside a can. Usually if you see a bigger vibration motor, it has like a shaft and then a weight at the end that's not balanced. So when it spins around, it like jostles, and that's what causes the vibration. Well, this has like an unbalanced weight inside the can so that it doesn't like catch on anything. It's a self-contained thing. But when you turn it on, and if you could go to the overhead, I'll show you the.
Oh yeah.
I made a little
To the overhead.
circuit. Here's our little coin cell battery
Oh,
holder.
we got a little bit of a blurry
You
cam.
can focus, camera. Look at my sparkly nails. They're left over from the show. Okay, got it.
There you go.
So I have this little battery holder and with alligator clips and one of our little vibration motors. When I turn it on, it buzzes. So you can these don't use very much power. You can hook them up to Flora to make like tactile interfaces. So like a stealth armband that navigates you around, or on the blog today we have a couple of haptic feedback projects that use vibration motors for therapy or like reducing pain or for communicating with dementia patients or but they're cool for like communication. Well, maybe we have some pictures.
Yeah, we have some examples. These are really cool. So this is a neat project.
Oh,
This is one of
yeah.
my favorite ones.
So this guy, Jacob Rosenthal, we met at Open Hardware Summit, took our digitally addressable LED strip, not the NeoPixel strip, but the other kind with the chips on the strip, not inside
Not
the
inside
LED.
the LEDs, yeah.
He removed the LEDs and he put soldered vibration motors instead. So he made like digitally addressable vibration motor strip, which
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
That is cool.
And it's easier than using like a bunch of shift registers to control all of
Yeah.
the different motors. And then on the blog today, there's this project you can watch a video about where they're using vibration motors for haptic feedback and therapy, like physical therapy. And then a couple weeks ago in our wearables archive, we posted about this project that's a GPS navigation jacket for runners, and it has 4 vibration motors. You can see them, the orange dots, and it like you program in a route or however you want to go when you're running, and it'll like help you navigate while you're running, so you don't have to like take out your phone.
Yeah.
But those are
So-
both projects that were done at like artist residency workshops and stuff.
Yeah, I like that that wearables and wearable electronics is still not. It's not just in the hands of cell phone makers or big companies.
Yeah.
Like all these are thought experiments,
Right.
and then you kind of see it turn into real products later.
Yeah, like I remember in college we used these and we tried to make some kind of like wearable that lots of people could wear and one person could send signals to create
Yeah.
like flocking, which is some of my students are working on this idea about like protesters flocking and nonverbal communication between protesters.
Yeah.
And we made belts that had vibration motors in them to tell you which direction to go. And like I tell you what, I made mine a garter instead of a belt.
Oh, and then you can.
And everyone else got really nauseated.
Oh, 'cause
Like
it-
they were all like, "Oh, I'm queasy from the vibrating on my
it keeps
stomach."
doing that, yeah.
And so like it's interesting to see, like you have this idea, oh, haptic feedback is so great, but like there's all this funny problems when you talk about putting things near your body.
Yeah, I made a virtual reality rig, and I would go into Second Life, and I was in there New Year's Eve, and I didn't get ill, but I was like walking around, and it was at the time there was so many weird things going on in Second Life, and then I was trying to navigate around, and I had built this thing, and it made me a little nauseous because
Yeah.
your brain thinks it's real, and you start to adapt, and you're looking off to the horizon. There's no real horizon, and then now you're flying, but you're not really flying.
Yeah, you're
And so-
hovering, and then
Yeah.
so it kind of like messes with your organs and motion
Yeah,
sick.
and then you take it off, and you're like, whoa, like things aren't actually that far, and there isn't going to be a rabbit smoking a cigar,
Well, and
riding
you
a
know,
dragon.
it's good that everyone becomes aware of these things early because, like, you know, the 3D movies and stuff. And like, I watched this
Yeah.
documentary about 3D movies and how, like, the recommended when they publish this technology or when they publish the guide to using this technology for movie makers, they're like, okay, guys, it's like pushing in and out from the plane of the screen, and if you push too far forward, it makes people's eyes cross like
Yeah,
too much.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. But like, I went to see Avatar, and I came out like.
That's all they did.
That's all they did was come this close to my face, and like I
Yeah.
spent the whole movie like looking at my nose, and it made my eyes hurt a lot. And so I won't go to see 3D movies,
Nah, a lot of people don't seem to like them.
or like the big action ones. I think Gravity was in 3D, right? And I saw that they didn't push too far.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
all right, but still, it worries me because it makes my body physically uncomfortable, and I don't like it when like big media companies get to make my body
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
You'll have to get glasses, Google Glasses or something that corrects, so you can it'll change it so it isn't in 3D. That'll be the next.
Yeah,
thing.
or just like constrains the 3D. It's like, hey guys, can you
Yeah.
follow some guidelines? Because you're making some of us sick over here.
All right, next up, before we go on to the next segment, code is knit, 10% off everything in the Adafruit store in the Flora and Wearables category. Material Spotlight.
We're going to talk about knitting, since the code is knit.
Yeah.
I wanted to explain to you all about knitting and why I like it. Well, no, some materials and
Okay.
about the
What
material
is
properties
this thing
of knitting.
here? It looks like an Adafruit scarf.
It is the beginning of the first Adafruit scarf that I made. Lamore and I hacked the knitting machine a couple years ago before I was at Adafruit. It was like a make video about taking an old Brother knitting machine and update or just like making a special cable and some Python scripts on the computer that would enable you to load like custom Photoshop patterns onto the knitting machine without having to have this like weird external ancient floppy drive that it expected to be connected to. And that was a really fun project, and I made some digital image scarves. I made some Adafruit scarves for you guys. Lamore still wears hers all the time when it's
Yeah.
cold. But I wanted to talk to you about what knitting is and what the physical properties of knit fabric. I thought I'd entertain you first by showing you an in-process image of that laptop sock that I made.
Okay.
So knitting can be kind of messy when you're working on it. Threads everywhere, needles holding on to certain places. But I swear, when you're done, it makes fun things like this. It's just like a giant sock. If you know how to knit,
Yeah, now you can use your computer without anyone noticing.
and with lots of extra heat. Anyway, so knit fabric is, by definition, like super stretchy. And here's a picture of our our jersey conductive fabric. It looks a lot like t-shirt material. So if you think about knit versus woven, think about your t-shirt versus your dress shirt. Does the
Yeah.
fabric stretch? Does it curl at the edges? You know when you cut up a t-shirt and it curls on you?
Yeah.
It's because of the stretchiness of the fabric. And so you can either use it to your advantage, and it can be a disadvantage sometimes, depending on what you're trying to make. So when people are like, oh, can I use conductive fabric for this?
Yeah.
It's like depends on the application. If you want it to be stretchy or not stretchy, and you can
Yeah.
actually make your own stretchy conductive fabric.
Yeah, I've heard you say lots of times, people are always trying to put like wearables in t-shirts. Like, don't do that. Like,
I don't like the idea of wearables in t-shirts. I know t-shirts are the most common thing because people wear them
Yeah.
all the time, but like knitting is stretchy, and so if you put heavy batteries and heavy electronics on it, it just kind of like
yeah, you have to use it as something different.
sags.
Yeah.
Pocket t-shirts we're getting small enough batteries that you could put your thing in your pocket of
That's a
your
good idea.
t-shirt.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But like t-shirts are stretchy, conductive threads not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's a diagram of what knitting actually looks like when it's close up. So you all know what woven fabric looks like. You have a warp and a weft, the fibers intersecting at right angles, one over the other, in an interleaving kind of way. Well, knitting is built up in rows of stitches with a continuous yarn. So you can see that in red here is the one continuous line of a row of stitches. And so I have this piece of knitting on, we can look at it on the overhead. We have the blurry problem again.
Yeah,
I was
sometimes
telling
it's
Phil
good.
earlier that I've got this fat gold manicure going on, and I feel like a 13-year-old girl with the sparkle in the. Okay, so this is a piece of knitting I did on by hand, where I took a regular piece of yarn, purple, and some conductive yarn here, and I used them together to knit. And so you can see that the yarn starts, and you do each row one at a time. And so if you look at the path of the gray thread, it's continuous, right? So all of the gray thread is connected to itself. People often say like, oh, can you like knit circuits into your garments with yarn? And like you can if you do it like row by row. But as you can see here, this is one piece of yarn that goes like this and connects. But this can be used as a stretch sensor. You know why? Because when it's relaxed, the stitches are looser They're like holding onto each other loosely. And when you stretch it, they pull tightly against each other and conduct more electricity. So this is actually a variable resistor.
Oh, okay.
If I had brought my multimeter over, you could see the values change as you stretch it. And that's what I've found a use for the conductive yarn in knitting so far. I know there's some researchers at I-Beam that I met last night at this event. You'll read about on the blog later today, where they're trying to use knitting machine to actually put resistors and capacitors into knit fabric by selectively including conductive yarns and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see what they
With a variable resistor, you could do something with sound, you could do something with light.
Yeah, like you make a bracelet or a sweater that, like, when you bend your elbow, it squeaks higher, or you know, activates a light or whatever. But this is what knitting looks like when it's just a hat you're working on.
That's a hat.
That's a hat that I'm making. And it's a really fun and relaxing hobby. If you are super dexterous, like I know a lot of you electronics people are, you might really like to try knitting. I learned when I was 13 from my mom, and it's really, you're never too young to learn how to do a fiber craft, so it's fun to learn with your kids.
And never too old.
And never too old, yeah.
All right, and then we have a couple photos here. This is...
Oh yeah, some cool knitted artworks I've seen. This is like knitted like aquarium tubing, and then you can pump different colored liquids through it. That was on a loom. And then this is a art piece by Laura Splon. It's a blood scarf. So it like the surgical tubing, and you hook it up, and then it fills with your own blood, which, you know, keeps you warm.
Yeah.
For art.
Art.
And then if you're looking for knitting patterns, my favorite knitting site is Ravelry.com. It's like founded by this couple. One was a fiber nut and the other one was a PHP programmer, database nut. Yeah. And together they made this most amazing knitting and crochet website on the planet. And it has really fun, like, smart search features where if you're looking to make, find a pattern to make for, you know, like, I want to make a dog sweater, I need to look for a pattern, or I want to make a dude hat, you can find, yeah, I don't know. And it's a free community, and you can share it's kind of like Thingiverse for knitting. You can post your own project, and people can make derivatives of it. And
that's cool.
Yeah, post pictures.
Okay, before we get on to the questions and answers, the code is knit 10% off everything in the Adafruit store in the Flora and Wearables category. Expires tonight, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Learn to knit. I'm proselytizing to you right now. Knitting's really fun.
All right, question and answers. The first question is from Sophie. Hello, I watched your video on making a handbag that recharges your phone, and I want to do something similar. Can I use one or more flexible 6-volt, 1-watt solar panels instead of the bulkier solar panels I see in the videos? Thanks for making awesome videos.
You're welcome, Sophie.
Becky.
And yeah, you can, sure. Look at the tutorial for the solar-powered recharging Minty Boost handbag, and just all you need to do is make sure that the addition of all of the solar panels you're using meet the minimum voltage in requirements for the battery charger in the circuit, and you're all good. So yeah, and I would look forward to seeing your flexible circuit. I don't think we had the flexible solar panels when I made that project, so you should do it and share it with us.
Next up, this is from Scott. One quick question, I hope. Can you use a 6-volt lead-acid battery with a buck converter to power NeoPixel strips? I want to do between 120 and 240 pixels. Wow.
Yes, I consulted Lady Ada on this question because I don't know much about the buck converter, and she said you can, and but that the 6 volts might be a little bit low for the minimum input of the buck converter, and you might want to use 2 in series to make 12 volts. Yeah. So that the buck converter has its minimum voltage met, and then it'll drop it down to 5 for the NeoPixels. But like, that's not that many NeoPixels. Are you making an installation that needs to be battery powered that you need to run for like a week without a charge? Because otherwise you could, with between 100 and 250 pixels, you get away with a smaller battery pack probably.
Yeah. When you go off and ask the Oracle, she gives you cookies, and like then you have to do Kung Fu. When you ask the Lady Ada, she'll give you some resistors and some buck converters, and then you go make something. Just saying. I've just seen both of these things. I have a fun story about these big batteries. Yeah. So if you watch the gigantic, like, Director's Cut Part 7 or something of Blade Runner, the umbrellas are neon tubes, and all the actors and the extras had to put them inside backpacks.
The batteries,
and then they had rain coming down on them, and once in a while they would get shocked.
Ow, because neon uses really high voltage.
Yeah, and these were beautiful umbrellas that painted this futuristic scene. And now you can get LEDs inside of umbrellas, but that's one of the cool things, and maybe one of the first wearable electronics project that people don't know about that was used on the big screen.
Yeah, and they had giant backpacks full of batteries. Yeah. These 6-volt batteries he's talking about, I think, are the like Rascal scooter batteries. They're like car batteries, but smaller, and they're only 6 volts. Heavy, but let us know how it goes.
Yeah, next up. This is from Richard. What is a good method for diffusing neopixel light over a larger area? I would like to make a sparkle skirt that illuminates patches of fabric rather than individual points of light.
Well, there's lots of different things you can do. You can make like a plastic diffuser out of like transparent PLA if you're into 3D printing. Last night at this I-beam event that's going up on the blog just after the show, I met a lady who made a skirt with our Flora NeoPixels inside of like a ruffly Tyvek like house wrap or like FedEx envelopes, but you can get it as it's just a textile. You can get it by the yard, and she made a fluffy skirt, and actually works really well for diffusion because it's a non-woven white translucent material, and it holds its shape pretty well. So if you were making and I'm glad you're making a skirt, it would be hard on pants because really the thing you need for diffusion is distance between the point of light and where it's hitting, right? So inside this ruffly Tyvek, there's like space to diffuse. So if you're making, I would like make a petticoat for the skirt that's ruffly in some way to help diffuse the light more.
Okay.
And post pictures and share with us, please.
Next, Becky, thanks for Babblefish. One question, is it possible if 2 or more RFID cards can be placed, it can play a one sound, thanks, and then he goes on and says, I'm trying to play a sound with my fingers attached to RFID card. Example, 1 finger for do and 2 fingers for RE key.
Right. Do and re.
Yeah.
Right? Like do, a deer, a female deer. I think he's trying to make a keyboard. No. You can't read multiple RFID cards on the same reader at the same time. If you see in the Babblefish tutorial that I'm sure you've looked at, because you already mentioned it, if you put 2 cards on the reader at once, it'll just pick whichever one it reads first. So if you were doing like RFID tags on your fingers, for instance, we recently saw RFID false fingernails that allow you to, oh my gosh, unlock your door like with your manicure.
Yeah, that was neat.
You could do 1 in each and then have do, re, mi. But if you want like to make chords with your fingers, there's a couple things we would suggest to you. 1, try our color organ tutorial with the color
video
sensor.
of that too,
Color sensor on your finger, and you can play different colors as notes, and you can play multiple notes as one, or it's like MIDI, so you can program it to do chords when you have one color. The other thing I'd recommend to you if you're not into having any electronics on your hands, which it doesn't sound like you are, it sounds like you want people to walk up and be able to do a thing to your project, is capacitive touch sensing with like copper tape or conductive fabric or whatever on your surface. And with Arduino and capacitive touch sensing, you can read more than 1 pin at once, and so play more than 1 sound at once if you wanted to make chords. So you could make like a copper tape keyboard. I don't know exactly what kind of music you're trying to make, but I'm sorry, RFID can only read 1 tag at a time.
Okay. We're going to do the giveaway now, but before we do, a final reminder, the code is KNIT.
You could get some knitted conductive fabric. We have 2 kinds.
Yeah.
The giveaway is tonight, today. It's not tonight yet, but it's...
Whenever you're watching this, it's recorded.
Oh yeah, tonight.
It's tonight somewhere in the world.
It is actually tonight in Europe right now.
Yeah.
Conductive fabric is part of the giveaway, this jersey and a vibration motor, both of which we talked about on today's show. And
who is the lucky winner?
To get eligible for the giveaway, just ask your wearable electronics questions below, and if I answer your question on the show, you go in this bucket, and then I pick your name, and then you win something.
It's that easy to win, folks.
Like really, we only answered like 4 questions.
Yeah.
So like really, that's a really good chance of winning a fun prize. Sophie, you are the winner. Congratulations, you won
Sophie.
a piece of conductive fabric and a vibration motor. And if you want to claim your prize, you can email support@adafruit.com, and I'll also come and find you on YouTube. Or yeah, that's YouTube. And so
no, she's actually going to get on a Greyhound bus and come and find you.
I don't have that much free time on my hands. I wish. Anyway, thanks.
All right.
Again for watching Wearable Electronics with Becky Stern and Phil. And we'll see you next week.
We'll see everybody next week. Bye-bye.